On this episode of Tips from the Top Floor, Oliver has some follow-up regarding cloud backups, David wonders about air travel and electronics, and Joe wants to shoot infrared black and white. Support for today's show comes from Shutterstock. You might know of Shutterstock as the home to royalty-free photos, but they offer much more. Kickstart your next interactive project with video clips or music tracks from their collection. All of your creative needs served to you in one place. Take advantage today of a 20% discount the company is offering for limited time at shutterstock.com/topfloor. That's shutterstock.com/topfloor. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 782 for Thursday, July the 6th, 2017.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, hello, welcome, this is Chris Marquardt. Welcome back to Tips from the Top Floor, the show about all things photography. Thank you all for sending in questions. I should give away more stickers. I'm drowning in questions, which is awesome because that means I can I have a lot of material to work off of here. So thanks all. I have decided to continue sending out stickers. So if you have a question for the show, a photographic question that makes it on the show, I will send you, as a little thank you, I will send you a Tips from the Top Floor sticker via mail, like a real, like physical mail. Yay! And you send it to voice@tfttf.com. Record it on your smartphone, send it to voice@tfttf.com, and I will get a sticker your way. Include your address, of course. Okie dokie. Quick follow-up from last episode. ARQ, the backup thing that I use, ARQ. I claimed it's for Mac. It's also for Windows. I didn't know that. So thanks. Don't remember who told me, but thank you for clearing that up. So I'm not affiliated, not being paid. That's not a paid endorsement. I just use it and it works for me. Another thing I forgot to mention when I talked about our Vienna workshop is that we did one really amazing thing there photographically, and that was that we did some light painting, but not just any kind of light painting. We did some bumper car light painting. Yep, one of the listeners of the German podcast Happy Shooting owns a big bumper car ride on the Vienna Prater. The Prater is one of the oldest amusement parks, and it's wonderful. It's beautiful. I love being there. And he pretty much gave us that bumper car ride. That's like, here are the keys. Do whatever you want. That's what we did for a few hours at night. And you just imagine like 20, 25 photographers standing around and having like the keys. I always wanted that as a kid. And it was more fun than I anticipated. Down to where we started to choreograph the people, like our group, members of our group, being the drivers and then driving in pirouettes and special patterns to make sure we get something interesting for the light painting. So I'm now an official bumper car choreographer, and there's a video to prove it, and I will link to that video. It's a very short one in the show notes. Now, on this episode, we have 3 of your questions, and my best try to give them some fair answers. And let's just kick it off with Oliver.
Hi, Chris. This is Oliver from Munich. Just one additional note regarding your unlimited Amazon cloud backup storage and all the things you told us about that. Everything fairly okay. Just one note. Keep in mind that the disaster recovery restore from those files from Amazon is fairly poor slow. I say it's about 2 to 3 megabit per second. If you're backing up a couple terabyte of data, just keep in mind that the restore will take a couple days. In my particular case, I tried to make a disaster recovery from my Synology, which is about 2 terabyte data on the crash plan, which is located on Amazon S3. And the estimated time calculation of crash plan was about 60 days. And I just made some math and recalculated, and yeah, it would be about 60 to 70 days to get all my files back from my complete Synology. Just keep this in mind, and my current personal plan on this is to find a solution for backup my data myself. So I'm located a second Synology at my brother's home, and I'm doing a hyper backup solution there, and the clients do the backup on the Synology at home. So honestly, I'm going to be independent of all official cloud solutions. And yes, I know there are other solutions out there who can send you a hard disk drive in case of a disaster recovery. Thanks for your efforts, and well, I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks, Oliver. Yes, recovery from the cloud will take a while. It will probably not take as long as that first initial backup, because for me, I think the first terabyte I uploaded to the cloud, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks on my 50 megabit down, 25 megabit upstream connection here. But that's why I have several lines of defense. That's crucial for me, because I have okay, let me go through them. First is a time machine backup that goes onto an external disk, sitting right under my desk. Second is a backup to my Synology NAS that's sitting in the basement. Third is a nightly clone of my main hard drive. And that I do this using SuperDuper, which is a program for Mac that can do like a real clone. So if my main drive dies, I can just plug that external one in and boot from that, and I'm back to where I was. And then the number 4 is the cloud backup. And that cloud backup is my very last line of defense. And honestly, I don't expect to use that ever. I do not have plans to use that. If I have to use that cloud backup, that is probably because something really, really nasty happened. Maybe, I don't know, the house burned down, or there was a flood, or someone pressed the big red button. Anyway, if anything like that happens, I will definitely have bigger issues to deal with, and the duration of a restore is probably going to be the least of my worries. And also, in that case, I would probably not go for a full restore or of a terabyte or more. I would first restore by important business data, and then once that's done, I would initiate the restore of the other things that I don't need immediately. And even the photos in my Lightroom catalog, for example, I have smart previews of at least the most important photos, so I could initially just restore those and work off of them. And then in a second step, I would restore all the raw files.
Hello, I'm David Stewart from Calgary, the land of the Stampede. I have a question concerning air travel. Now that the US is considering banning all electronics in the cabin larger than a cell phone, how should we travel with our photography equipment while flying to and from the US of A?
Greetings to Calgary. Yeah, that laptop and camera ban, that was a huge concern to me. I mean, I was almost losing sleep over that, because I'm planning to visit. Okay, I think this is the first time I'm actually telling this. I'm planning to come to the US in May next year, 2018, for a workshop or two. So, yeah, but those will be all up on my workshop website on discoverthetopfloor.com in a few weeks, I guess. But now that you recorded that, and I think you recorded that a couple of weeks ago, before some of those restrictions have actually been lifted. So at this moment, it's actually looking better. And that's, what a relief. And, banning that stuff from the cabin, I mean, that would have had, or that did have some real consequences. First of all, some airlines reported a massive drop in travelers. I think I read somewhere something like 20%. So there was some immediate economic consequences. That's not good. Second, you are typically not allowed to check lithium-ion batteries into your checked luggage. And the reason is that lithium-ion batteries are not quite that benign. They can potentially catch fire. They usually don't. Never happened to me. But that's true for batteries that have been punctured or mistreated in some other way. And you do remember the Samsung Galaxy Note 7? Yeah, so it could even be a manufacturing defect. But guess what? If a battery catches fire inside the passenger compartment, you can see it, you can smell it, you can catch it and extinguish the fire. If a battery is in the luggage compartment and it catches fire there, that is so much harder to detect, and that fire is much harder to put out. So as a last resort, I was thinking about what am I going to do next year, and I was seeing if I could get a loaner somewhere, a camera from somewhere, and a laptop from somewhere. But then I thought maybe I'll FedEx that stuff overseas, but then that would just be shifting the problem, because then FedEx would have that in their cargo airplanes, and those would then be it's a difficult problem. Last weekend I talked to a guy who works in the cargo business, and he told me stories about batteries. Anyway, so I'm quite glad that it's looking like they're lifting that ban again. Phew.
Hey Chris, this is Joe from Maryland again. Recently I tried some black and white infrared film, and unfortunately it didn't go well. I posted some results up on the Slack channel and got some feedback from Andrew. Thanks, Andrew. It's definitely been helpful. But I was wondering if you had thoughts on infrared film photography and infrared digital photography. If you could give me some tips, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Hey, Joe. Infrared photography. First of all, what is infrared film? Because it's not that different from regular black and white film. Now, if we look at the visible spectrum, if you're in the United States, you learned Roy G. Biff, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, which is the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow. And that's the visible spectrum. And then on the red side, you have infrared. On the violet side, you have ultraviolet. And those are both invisible to our eyes. But special film can see it. And the film is regular black and white film. But its sensitivity has been extended over the red spectrum into the infrared. And that's why you can, for example, use infrared film like regular black and white film. Now, on a hot sunny day, you will see a lot of infrared out there being emitted, for example, by the green foliage on trees and grass and so on. That reflects the infrared away. There's also infrared in shadow areas, which will become interesting in just a minute. Now, there are two ways to shoot that. First of all, as I just said, you can shoot it like normal. And just use it as regular film. And then what the film sees, in addition to the visible light, it will also be exposed by the infrared light. So that is visible on the film in the photo. But remember that hot sunny day I talked about? Well, again, typically you'll fight really strong contrasts on a sunny day. If the sun is out and you're shooting in direct sun, you'll have like bright surfaces with hard shadows, with not a lot of detail in them. But guess what? The infrared that gets emitted from those shadows, the infrared film can see that. So you will, for example, get better shadow detail on sunny days, which is pretty cool. But now the second way is that you can block out the visible light with an infrared filter. And the filter will look black to your eyes. Infrared filter is misleading because it doesn't filter infrared. It filters visible light, and it'll look black to your eye because it filters out the visible spectrum, what you can see, but it lets infrared through. And this way, you'll get the typical like white leaves and white grass and black skies, very surreal kind of look of infrared photography. And yeah, you'll just need that special filter. Now, you will run into some issues when trying to do that. First of all, your focus might be off. I mean, first of all, you don't really see anything while focusing through the viewfinder because there's this filter on that blocks the visible light. But then even if you thought, hey, why don't I take the filter off, focus and put the filter back on, that that might work, but not as good as you thought it would, because infrared light focuses on a different distance than the visible light. In fact, every wavelength focuses on different distances, which makes chromatic aberrations. But that's why lenses need to be corrected so well to avoid that, to make every focal length focus on the sensor, or on the film. But I'm not really aware of any lens that is made for infrared photography that is corrected for infrared light. But older manual lenses, like film day lenses, often have an infrared indicator or a red dot or a red line that can help you to correct for your infrared focus. Now, the second issue is exposure, because again, your light meter won't see infrared, so you'll not be able to use a light meter. You'll have to do the math or like extrapolate from a measurement without the filter. The filters will often have a correction factor in the data sheet that you might be able to use for that purpose. So that's something I would look at. But on film, the exposure, I think we're just talking a few stops of difference between the regular exposure and the infrared exposure, because film, especially infrared film, is made to see infrared. The problem on the digital side is that it gets harder because digital cameras have infrared filters built in. Yeah, in front of the sensor, there's a filter package, and part of that is an infrared filter that filters out the infrared light. And that's to get you better color fidelity, and that's also a reason you won't need an infrared or a UV filter for that matter on the front of your lens to correct the colors. You used to have those sometimes for film photography, but for digital photography you don't need those because the filters are already built in. Now that's a problem when you want to do infrared photography, because infrared light doesn't go through easily. You can still get some infrared light through, but first of all, not as far in the wavelength spectrum, and also not as much. So you will deal with much, much longer exposures than with film. You'll have to have the camera on a tripod. You'll have to have, everything set for long exposures. Now, there's a way around that. There are companies out there that will modify your digital camera. Well, what they'll do is they will take the entire filter package out and replace that infrared filter with optical glass. It's one way to do it. And this way your digital camera can see infrared. And you can use your regular infrared filters, the ones that look black to the eye, to block out the visible light while still maintaining reasonable shutter speeds. But just keep in mind, that's a modification that is typically a one-way street. And that also has side effects, mainly in the way your camera handles colors. So I'm looking forward one day to getting a camera that does that. I don't have one, but I've shot with one, and it's a lot of fun to be out in somewhere bright sunlight, noontime, where you would typically not go out to shoot, and then shoot with a camera that sees infrared. But I would only do that to a spare camera that I don't need for anything else anymore. And that was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thank you so much for listening, for subscribing, for just being around. You guys are the reason I do this show.
If you want me to go, you better let me know. I remember that I told
Thanks to Oliver, David, and
I told you.
Oliver and David. That's not right. Joe. Thanks for Oliver, David, and Joe for sending a voicemail. And anyone else, if you want to send in your voicemail, your question, your input, and get a sticker for it, record it in the voice memo app of your choice and send it to voice@tfttf.com. That's voice@tfttf.com. And thanks again to all the amazing supporters on Patreon, tfttf.com/Patreon. It's an important contribution to help keeping this show going. Thank you so much.
The pages while I'm over when I gave between love and hate. I feel
Music for the show by Jeff Smith, silent partner in Headspace Kagrid, publishing by Release Pixie, Matt Rassiter Armstead, Slack invitations by CIO Russ, and if you want to join the discussion, go to tfttf.com/yslack, WHYSLACK, for more information.
be sunshine after rain.
My name's Chris Marquardt. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at Chris Marquardt, Chris MARQUARDT. And of course, go out and take amazing photos.
Big city,
Be nice to each other.
leave it all behind.
And happy shooting.